Hey everyone, welcome back to Orcs Must Die 2. It's been a while since I've gotten a chance to record. And I messed up. A few days ago, I tried to get back. I've been very busy recently, and while I had some time, I went and tried to record a little bit. And we left off on Precipice, and I did Servant Entrance and Passages, which are the next two levels. They're the first two levels of Act 2, sorry. And upon completing Passages, I realized I was not recording. So, I'm not just gonna leave it there. I'm gonna redo the levels, and we're not gonna use what we got from completing those levels, because why would I? This is supposed to be as if we didn't beat these. So, I've already played these two levels with this character, but we're going to replay them for the next two episodes, and then we're going to back up on corridors as if nothing happened. So, I apologize. I just completely failed to realize that I was recording, and I honestly don't know how. I mean, I know I was tired, but really, that's really stupid. So, for completing Servant Entrance, we got the Ice Amulet, which is a spell. And then completing Passages, we got the Archer Guardian. So, we're not going to be using those. We're just going to be using these traps right here, because that's what we would normally have at this point. I could buy something else to use, but I'm just gonna stick with this. I need to upgrade these real quick because I had upgrades into the Ice Amulet, and I didn't want those to be going to waste. So first off, we'll definitely get that, and we'll get the first here. We'll come back, see if I can get more later. Tar, we want the first two at least, and then that. Barricades, like always, we want those maxed. What else? Arrow walls would be pretty handy. I want to get the arrows that set people on fire. Those will be pretty helpful. I'll get the second two of those as well. Get two spike traps. Two haymakers. We'll get that one too. That's a pretty useful, unique upgrade. Get that. Do I have enough for tier 3 tar? Oh. Just shy. Crap. I don't know what to spend these last few on. What about... Oh, I can get... Yeah, I'll get tier 3 blunderbuss. Alright, so Servant Entrance. And because this is the beginning of a new act, there's going to be a cutscene that has to do with the story, so I'm going to shut up now.
He didn't even check to see if I was breathing. He grabbed my crossbow and blade staff and left me there, lingering at the edge of consciousness. I could have sworn I heard him giggle. When I felt the magic die, I knew what he'd done. He'd saved the world. But he hadn't understood the cost. Droughts, starvation, misery just as bad as the orc mobs had inflicted. I was still the oldest living war mage. With the last of my power, I could open one small, weak rift. She was flawed, I knew that. But together, my two ex-apprentices had the potential to be something more.
This construction is recent.
Yeah, it does have that new fortress smell.
The walls and floors. A master's work. Few among the Order had such skill.
Yeah, there's an army of orcs on the way. How about you measure the place for drapes after the next attack?
So, while I rearrange our traps real quick, that cutscene basically explains... If you remember, I mentioned... is that? Yeah, that's right. I mentioned at the beginning of the series, I talked about the story in the first one about how the character we're playing as now, the War Mage, trained under an older War Mage named the Master, who, in the opening cutscene of the first game, died. He slipped and cracked his skull open, and the War Mage took over for him because there were orcs invading, and to stop the orcs invading, he decided to close the rifts. So they couldn't get to the human world. But that cutscene basically says that it also cut off magic to the human world. So it was doing just as much harm as the orcs would have done had we let them get through. Or had we stopped defending the rifts and let them get through. So that's where we are in the story. Oh, and the Master's not dead, if you didn't notice. So we're gonna look, they're not highlighted because I've already done this, but we have two new enemies in this one. We have kobolds, sappers, crossbow orcs, ogres, medium orc warriors, and light orc warriors. And if I remember correctly, besides the bile bats, that's everything we've come across up to this point. Now we also have heavy orc warriors, which are just generic normal units, but they take a considerable beating when it comes to medium and light orc warriors. They're pretty tanky, and I think they do a little bit more damage. I'm not sure. I'll have to fact check that. They're not quite as tanky as ogres, and they don't count for 5 rift points, but they're pretty tanky. And we're going to be seeing a lot of them. Now, the other enemy is the Gnoll Hunter. Gnoll Hunters are kind of like crossbow orcs, but Gnoll Hunters do not actually go for the rift. They make a beeline for... they'll make a beeline for players and any guardians, like if we put down any dwarves. They make a beeline for them and hunt them down and try to kill them. And they're very fast, and they have their attack will poison you, and it'll slowly drain your health, and it'll also slow you. So they're they can be pretty dangerous to an unaware player. Unfortunately, they actually howl when they enter the battlefield, so you get a little bit of a heads up before one comes. But you should definitely be careful, especially if you're in the midst of a group of enemies, because being slowed like that opens you up to taking a lot of unnecessary damage from other enemies. So, real quick before we start, I know it's been a while, I'm sorry. Before we start, just to explain, they're going to be coming out of this door here soon, and they can take 3 possible ways up the stairs, up to here, and down to the rift. And I figured if I barricade off these 2 stairways at the bottom of the stairs, they have to go around this one, which is the longest way. And then both the enemies that come out of this door and the ones that come from over here where we're heading to now will all get funneled into the same area. So that's the strategy we're going to go with, and let's get started.
Here they come.
So that was the Gnoll Howl. You can see they're pretty quick, almost as fast as kobolds. And they, kind of like sappers, they make a very loud, distinctive noise when they come into the battlefield. So you know they're coming. Fortunately, we have this upgrade for the
That
blunderbuss
just
that
happened.
completely negates them if we're paying attention. So now what I want to do, I'm going to set up a barricade there so they're forced to walk up against this wall, and we're going to put some tar and spikes there, and then we're going to put some arrow walls right there in a second.
Use caution. Those larger orcs are tougher than their smaller kin.
So that was a little heads up from the characters. We've gotten a few of those before. About the heavy orc warriors, who are going to be coming behind us here in a second. And for the brief moment I looked up and glanced at the mini-map, I actually didn't see or hear that knoll coming, so... Uh-oh. Yeah, we're fine. So they're the heavy orc warriors. You can see they definitely take a lot more punishment than the lights and mediums. They also give you a little bit more money, so that's cool.
I can do this all day. Picnic time.
Sorry about that. I was deciding what I wanted to do there. So for the enemies that come all the way over there, we're just gonna kind of let them walk to us. Since they're coming here anyways, it doesn't really make sense to go over there and deal with them when we could go ahead and get a head start in dealing with these guys. And I'm gonna go ahead, turn around, just to deal with those sappers. If I can aim... Uh-oh. There they are. It's another little group of sappers. You can sort of hear they have like a fireworks sound almost. But yeah, it just doesn't make sense to go all the way over there whenever these enemies could potentially sneak by. I don't want to risk anyone getting
For
by.
everyone.
So we'll just go ahead and
Killing
go.
season.
I think there's not much really we need to do in terms of strategy. I think we pretty much got it figured out. One thing I'm worried about is sappers coming out of this door because it's going to be hard to prevent them from hitting these. That was a really nice grenade. What was that one? Wait, oh no, that only knocked one enemy. The lava, I thought it was more. Yeah, that one grenade killed a bunch of enemies. That was really satisfying. We got an ogre. He shouldn't be a big deal though, because he's got to walk all the way through our traps. We'll just keep our distance. There's no reason to get close. So now we're kind of getting into the downtime of the level where I don't have a whole lot more to say. So I'm not really sure what to talk about, and I'm sure that's something that I'm sure that's something you guys have picked up on. Is that eventually I just kind of run out of talking points. So I think one thing I wanted to do to make use of this time where I just have no idea what else to say was, oh shoot. Oh yeah, that's another thing. Gnolls can walk over barricades, so you want to be careful.
Wow.
Okay,
A lot of death.
I've never seen that happen before. I have no idea what to think about that. But, I just decided I would, I actually did this, whenever I thought I was recording these episodes. before.
Brutal.
And I thought it was a good idea at the time. I still think it's a decent idea. So, what I decided to do was use this time for you all to get to know me a little bit better. Like, just tell you a little bit about myself. And, I guess just basic information would be the start. So, right off the bat, where the settlers coming from?
They're in the South Hall.
Okay, they're coming from the other. So I think just basic information to start with, so you'll kind of know who I am.
Yes.
I am a 19-year-old going to the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. A lot of people outside of Tennessee probably know it as like the University of Tennessee, but you gotta clarify if you live in Tennessee, so figured it doesn't hurt. But I am currently a physics major, but I would like to transfer to architecture because let's just go ahead and do it. Architecture interests me a lot more than physics does. I am interested in physics, and if I can't transfer to architecture for whatever reason, I'm more than happy with the physics field. I've always just been really into architecture. I mean, it sounds stupid, but even when I was little, I would play with Legos and I would go into creative mode on Minecraft all the time and just build. And I would lie if I said that I hadn't messed around with Legos in Minecraft in the past year, I suppose. I haven't really gotten a chance to play with Legos on campus because I have to put up the Mirage to some degree that I'm a responsible adult. Which I know is a silly thing to say as a 19-year-old, but just everything about architecture has always really interested me. I've always been a very center brain person. Like, whenever I would take those right brain, left brain tests, I would always end up right in the middle. So right in the middle of like math and science, and then like art and whatnot.
It's about to get off.
So a lot of people just like didn't know what to do with that because there aren't a lot of fields where you can fully make use of both of those. And eventually, I think it was my dad that first mentioned the idea of, well, what about architecture? It's a good job for someone who uses their right and left brain fully. And he said because of what, like the toys I would play with when I was little and the games I would play, he just said that would, or he felt like that would be something that interests me, and I thought about it and looked into it, and I thought that was a pretty good idea. So I applied to UT with an architecture major, and I had to have letters of recommendation, and I picked two teachers that I had had for a long time that knew me, that knew my work ethic, that would have liked to write me a good letter of recommendation. And it just felt appropriate for them to do it. And unfortunately, they were really busy when that came around. So my letters of recommendation, they both went in really late to the application process. And UT has a really small and competitive architecture field, so they ran out of space by the time my letters of recommendation went through.
Wow, that's a lot of debt.
So I got accepted with my second major, which was physics. And that's how I got to where I am today. Besides architecture, obviously, oh jeez. Oh, this is bad. Oh, there's a health potion right there. That was really helpful.
Right in the leg.
So, aside from architecture, I kind of grew up watching gaming YouTube channels, and if you haven't noticed, I kind of like video games a little bit, and that has really been what I've always wanted to do, was YouTube, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now. So that was Servant Entrance. It's a pretty straightforward map. It's not too bad. Normally we would have, like I said at the beginning of the episode, normally we would have just unlocked the Ice Amulet for our trouble. And we'll mess around with that in passages. But that's enough about me, and that's enough for this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.